viewers on MCAT, Missoula Community Access Television, and we're here at the Missoula Public Library for our first Wednesdays with the mayor, not only the first of 2024, but our first with new Mayor Andrea Davis. And Andrea, it's good to be here with you. We got some folks here in the audience, so that's nice to see. And want to remind you that if you're watching as we go through the course of our question and answers tonight, we'll be talking about some different things, getting to know Andrea a little bit more and about what some of the goals and things that she's seen and hopes to work on in the coming months and years. And if you have a question, you can call that in at 546-7692, 546, it's 406. 546-7692. And if you do have a question in the audience, we'll be doing questions and answers here in a little bit. But if you think of something as we're going along, just flag Jenny, Miriam. She has the cards, and we can even write it down to take those notes. So, well, gosh, let's get started.
All right.
This is kind of fun. Andrea and I, of course, have done interviews before. Usually we're talking about housing issues and funding and those kinds of things. But get us started a little bit to talk a little bit about sort of your background and what kind of brought you to this point.
All right, Dennis. Well, thank you. And thank you, everyone in the audience, for being here tonight, and those folks watching on MCAT. Really appreciate the opportunity and the hosting that you do as well, Dennis. Thank you. I am a Montanan, a lifelong Montanan, and I've lived in Missoula for 25 years. My professional background is that I've been building homes that Montanans can afford for 22 years. So most of that time has been with an organization that's headquartered here in Missoula called Homeward, and we are housing developers as well as housing educators and counselors. So we build homes across the state, and we also preserve existing homes that are affordable, that need rehabbed and then maintained affordable into perpetuity. And then here in Missoula, we're also they are also home buyer educators, and they provide financial skill building opportunities. So really helping people, empowering people through knowledge and through information and encouragement to make really good financial decisions for themselves and their families. That was when I started this work 22 or almost, it would have been 23 years ago. What brought me to that work was I came to Missoula after graduating with my 2-year degree from Flathead Valley Community College and came to the University of Montana, as many people do. And I graduated with an organizational communications degree and environmental studies. And I was very interested in changing business from the inside out. And because my goal was to help create a more sustainable future for not only economically, but in terms of the way in which we, the environment and clean and healthful environment. And Homeward was a really good fit because they are leaders in green building technologies and sustainable development. And when I was hired there, I realized this is such a personal fit for me because growing up in Kalispell, I grew up with working class parents. My mom was a waitress for the majority of my life, a union waitress, and my dad is a ceramicist. He's a studio potter. And
oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so we had modest means, but we had, growing up in Kalispell when I did, we had access to affordable homes. We grew up in good neighborhoods. We were renters my whole life until my parents were 17 when they bought their first home. And but it didn't matter. It didn't matter that we were renters because we still lived in a good place. And I rode my bike to school, and I knew my neighbors, and that kind of ethic and that growing up really helped create and launch my life. And I see and want that for all Missoula kids. It matters in terms of, you shouldn't, as they say, your zip code should not determine, the outcome of your life. And unfortunately, that is a real scenario in the United States. So that really drove me to want to run for mayor when the opportunity presented itself. I have been doing community development and public service my whole life, and the opportunity, I was encouraged by many people to consider this and this next phase of leadership, and so that's what I did. And my husband Dennis and I live right in the middle of town, where we live in the Franklin to Fort neighborhood, and I love this place like all of you do, and we get out there and enjoy all that Missoula has to offer, including this amazing library. And we love to bike and ski and hike and do all those things. And we see the changes and feel the changes that you do too. And I want to help Missoula navigate those for the future, because change is here, regardless of whether we want it or not. And we can really shape that for the positive, and making sure that that Missoula, it continues to be the tremendous place that it is.
I was fascinated when you announced that you were going to run. I thought, having done, seems like nonstop stories about, the housing crunch and this, and I thought, okay, here comes an expert. Here comes somebody that knows how to, get some things done and tackle really one of the biggest issues we had. But I know it goes much deeper than that because, as you said in your opening, Homeward did a lot of really innovative things, working with people to help them achieve those kinds of goals and, as you say, navigate a pretty complicated landscape. I mean, that's I know that's one of your objectives, right, is to help folks in those directions.
Absolutely. Yeah, exactly. It's really helping our citizens connect with resources. I mean, the city doesn't do anything really alone. I mean, oh yes, of course we do. We were put in water lines, but I mean, these big, hairy challenges that are in front of us and opportunities, we do that through collaborative work with our community and partnerships. And truly, the challenge of home affordability is, it's the issue of our times. We are not alone in this. Montana is definitely, this is an issue all across our state, but it's an issue all across our nation. And in Missoula, we will work on local solutions here. And the city really has the opportunity to create the foundation for really harnessing the private market really to respond to this. The organization that I was an executive director for 15 years, while a nonprofit, is still the private sector. While we worked alongside government and utilized some federal funds, we also utilized private financing. And so harnessing not only our nonprofit partners, but the builders, the contractors, the developers. And the city is undergoing some very important code reform updates. It's a long and lengthy process because the city has a host of different codes that we've been doing some actual gradual updates, and we're joined tonight by Councilwoman Sandra Vasica, and it's great to have her and her son Xander here. And so she's also been working on some of those issues at the council level, making sure that we've got these interim changes on our codes that we can move forward, but we're really looking to bring a unified development code update that will make it easier for not only the private sector, but even you and I. We want to build a garage.
Yeah.
It's kind of complicated right now. It might take longer than it should. So that, reducing the time that it takes to get that processed should help folks in terms of delivering more homes that are affordable to Missoulians.
One thing, too, that I know in watching some of your work with Homeward, and it's interesting to me because it seems like Missoula is, like many cities, gets to the point where redevelopment and repurposing and just kind of rethinking how you've done things. What's your land use? What's your this or that? What do we do with this structure? I love the story. I still, when you told me Homeward was redoing the old hospital in Livingston. And I was like, that's the hospital I was born in, and you're turning it into affordable housing. This is just very cool. Yeah. But that type of an approach seems to be quite timely when you come to a city that's in Missoula's age and evolution, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. We've kind of moved beyond, in some ways, I mean, there is still greenfield development and sort of first generation building, but we are at a point in the age of our community where we will be, and we have been repurposing more buildings. I mean, Homeward's first adaptive historic reuse project was right here in Missoula, and that's Lenox Flats downtown. That building was built in 1915. It was railroad housing. It turned into short-term housing. Then it was offices for a long time. It's right across the street from the courthouse. And now it's mixed use. There's commercial on the first floor and small apartments on the second and third floor. And that is quite urban in a lot of ways. There's no parking associated with it because it's down in the central business core of Missoula, but it's right next to Mountain Lines Transit Center. So it really works for those residents. And we're sitting in the new library, and that the old library block is right next to us. And that's a major redevelopment opportunity for our community. And that's exactly the partnership methodology I was talking about, right? We had somebody that owned the property here that the new library was built on, and basically did a swap and donated that structure and that land to the city, which is an enormous gift because we have the opportunity there now to build a vibrant, mixed-use project that would provide both homes and small scale retail and things that will support downtown, maybe hopefully including childcare. facilities, those kinds of things. And that, I'll put a plug in, that keep an eye out for communications coming from Missoula, City of Missoula, because we will be doing some community engagement around that. The developers that the Missoula Redevelopment Agency has chosen will be coming to Missoula to hear from you as citizens about what you want to see built on the old library site. So stay tuned, it's happening very soon.
Before we go off into another thing too, it seems to me, even outside of housing or buildings or those kinds of things, Missoula's bones are good, aren't they? I mean, I've heard that expression from developers redoing projects or doing this or those kind of things. And certainly we have our challenges with traffic and growth, and that presents those things. But how do you feel about us if you were to stand back and look at the skeleton, if you will, and the muscles of Missoula? How are we anyway?
Well, I mean, it's an honor to be the mayor of Missoula because we really are an outstanding community. In terms of planning and the bones, as you will, whether those be the bones or the veins, the arteries, sometimes I think about the bones being the streets and the buildings and the veins being the trails that connect us.
Yeah.
And we have a plethora of infrastructure here that really, it really is, it's in very good shape, and there are opportunities for us to do some improvements as well, right? We know we need to improve some roads and things like that, especially as growth continues. But yeah, we've got a lot of excellent old buildings, and some of them have had their useful life. I mean, just like any community, that does exist. But
yeah, it's fun to watch and see also the opportunity we have to take advantage of, decisions that were made 25, 35 years ago to get us to this point. That's an exciting thing. Speaking of that, congratulations to as Wallet Hub naming Missoula as one of the best run cities in the country, and that gives a good credit to all the staff and all the people who've worked on this in this organization for all these years, right?
Absolutely. I mean, an incredibly dedicated and committed staff that work at the City of Missoula. It is, I would say it's akin to working in the nonprofit field. You have a drive for community service and a drive to do things that are, yes, a good paying job, hopefully, right? But also you're delivering something that your community needs. And that feels really good at the end of the day, right? To go home and say, like, I think I did something good today.
That's always a good feeling, no matter what job it is. Let's talk a little bit about run. So we talked about your decision to run and some of those objectives. Let's talk a little bit about differences, just to sort of illustrate. As you kind of settle into this, we knew, of course, Mayor Engen for many years, his predecessors, Jordan last year. Tell us a little bit about maybe what are some of the, first off, similarities with some of your predecessors. What kind of things did you look and say, watch it, John Engen or someone else, and what are some of those things that might be similar?
One of the things that I want to aspire to when it comes to Mayor Engen is remembering people's names. He had such an incredible knack for that. And I'm getting better at it, but it's definitely nowhere where John Engen was, I will admit. And I also think that, both he and Mayor has had a calming presence and energy, which I think is really helpful in a substantive leadership role like this. I'm pretty energetic, and so I think that can be good, but I certainly don't want to get us too excited. I want you to know that everything's under control here. And I mean, in addition to that, some of the things that I think we have in common are vision. We can see things out in the future, and then working with incredible staff and partners in the community, and then the support of our citizens to take the steps to get there.
Conversely, what are maybe some of the differences, the distinctions that you bring to the job of mayor?
Well, some of the distinctions, I would say I bring a long time career as being an executive. So an executive director of a nonprofit organization is a very comparable role in a lot of ways. I mean, that's really what the mayor is in the city of Missoula. And while the city council is an elected board, it's like a board of directors. And as an executive, you're for a nonprofit like Homeward, and at the city, we are working with our constituents and identifying goals, challenges, things we want to work on together, creating a plan, and then setting out with a host of strategies to try to to try to solve for those challenges. So that there's similarities. I would say that that's the difference I bring in terms of some of my experience in that, very specifically. I'm this, I'll say that a lot of people have made this observation and note that I am the second woman mayor. The last woman mayor was in 1947.
When you ran, I started to look back and I go, 1940. I mean, that's remarkable in a city that has a fairly progressive reputation.
It is.
That it took us that long. So that's pretty unique.
I've, throughout the campaign, I had a lot of young women, young girls, really, young women. I mean, 8 to 80 really was really cool. But I mean, I had kids staying at a school because their parents said, well, we're going to meet with you today, and they wanted to meet you because these young girls don't see women in roles often like this, and that is really interesting to be part of something that means so much to a generation, that they see leadership opportunities for themselves.
I've had a long day, and now the previous mayor's name escapes me off the top of my head. No, first woman.
No, now you. Thank you, Julia Gregory.
Thank you, Jenny Merriam, for yes, Mayor Gregory. I want you to go back. I'll have to remind me. I'll send you. I got a copy from everybody over at the Mansfield. Sent me a copy of an interview they did with her in 1971, I think it is.
I listened to it.
Isn't that amazing?
Yes.
To hear her, and it was interesting to hear how she got into the race. Was really, she wanted to get things done, and she was not really happy with the way the status quo had been. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Yeah, that's a fascinating interview if people haven't heard it. Let's talk about some of the things you had to do getting started. You had an advantage of jumping in a few weeks, faster than tradition. Was kind of nice to be able to get into that, get through the holiday period. What have been some of the things to get you up and running in this new position?
Well, I will say that it has been mayor onboarding time, and so my calendar is quite full, as you can imagine, and that is really good. It's also a bit of a challenge. Some of I can't follow back up with some of my desires and commitments, like routine meetings with my colleagues on council to make sure that I actually have a routine meeting set up. But it's happening. It's getting scheduled.
Sandra will hold you to that.
Absolutely. So I mean, some of the things that have been getting me up and running, honestly, and the staff have been incredibly supportive, as have council members and community members, saying like, I need you to know this. We need to get you set out with this information, debriefs on certain issues. So that's been really good. It was helpful. It was a fast transition. I basically stepped out of being an executive director and right into being the mayor, which was quite something. It was kind of good. That was during the holidays. It was a little bit quieter. Now we have 2 new council members, and it's a brand new year, and so you can really feel the momentum of like, okay, here it is, the calendar year starting. There's all these initiatives. Off we go. Yeah, I would say you probably read in the newspaper that I had the opportunity. I received a scholarship to attend a program at Harvard University.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
what an opportunity.
It was very cool. Yeah. It was very cool. It was great because, first of all, I had the opportunity to create a network with 26 other mayors from around the country, and they're from small communities to large communities. And so, speaking of women in leadership, the mayor of Philadelphia, first woman mayor of that city, also an African-American woman. She lived in public housing and was somebody that, she tells her story, and it's really an achievement, not only for, of course, her and that community and the country, but she was in my class. And then there were folks from Beaumont, Texas, and, like small communities all over, but having the network of a peer, because, well, there's nobody else in town with this job. And even though, of course, I've got amazing partners and colleagues, it's different. And so that was really beneficial, relationships like that. When there are crises that happen, and there were examples given from other past mayors, and having that network around the country as a support system is really a very helpful thing. In fact, it happened the day after we flew home. My colleague from Nashville, Tennessee, they had a series of tornadoes hit their community, and he was texting us basically saying, I'm entering the Emergency Operations Command Center right now. And
Wow.
it was a brand new mayor. And so, all the things that you need to think about in terms of helping your community through a time of crises and things like that. So, but really good, just very pragmatic training and coursework around, launching your first 100 days. We have a little bit of a different situation here in Missoula because we don't have a large turnover in a transition team. I'm not coming in and replacing department heads.
Right.
It's not how our government is structured, but a lot of places are. So a good part of that training was around building your team and how you're basically your political appointees. But I still have the opportunity to build a team and create structure changes even with our existing.
I like seeing that because so many times, you knock around in the business that I'm in, and you'll see cities continually trying to solve same things over and over. And if you got that ability, even to just pick up the phone and chat with someone, and you're having a bad day, that can really help.
Yes.
To say, it'll be all right. You'll get through it, right?
Yeah,
That's really
absolutely.
cool. That's actually. What about unexpected challenges? What might have come up that was sort of hopefully you haven't had too many curveballs yet, but has there been one or two that you didn't see coming?
Well, when people say that, like you are somebody had said it's like stepping onto a moving train, and it is a bit like that. And it is when you have when you have to ask somebody to go get you a sandwich, that is a weird thing to actually, but sometimes it happens, and we quite literally are back to back, which is something I'm not quite used to. At home, where I was very busy, but I had more command of my schedule, and so that's been
There's
interesting.
a lot of moving parts to this job that people don't realize.
A lot of it, a
until you're in it.
lot.
Yeah.
So that's going in and out of like really major subjects, which is why it's really incredible to have such an incredible team around me because they're providing the information, briefing, and also it's been great because staff members have been participating in most meetings I'm in, which then helps me follow up as I need to. That's been, I think, one of the challenges has just been able to be as responsive as I need to by normal communications, email. One thing that I told myself, I said, day 1 or 2, I'm going to have walked all of City Hall. I'm going to have visited all the staff.
I've heard that before.
Oh, yeah. I'm going to go to the Public Works Department. I'm going to go tour the wastewater facility.
Ride with the cops.
I have done that.
Run. Yeah.
I have done a ride along with the police, but I haven't done a ride
Hopefully
along.
it wasn't in the back of the car. That's good, though.
Yeah.
But it is a challenge because
can't get out of my office.
there's so much to do that you do have to pace yourself a little bit with that. Yeah.
The mayor's office is a conference room, so if you come down and have a meeting with me, there's a big, large conference table in there, which is great because speaking of talking with colleagues across the country, somebody from the Midwest had said, I invited so-and-so back to my office, and they were staff members. Yeah. And they said, I have worked for the city for 15 years, and I've never been in the mayor's office.
Yeah,
so that's
we don't do that in Missoula.
No, we don't do that in Missoula, but that means that I don't often get out of that office because everybody comes into me, which, But I actually just wrote a note to the folks at the wastewater treatment facility. I just signed an agreement before I came here. And they're ready to give me a tour, and I'm ready to take one. So we're going to get that scheduled.
Well, you could pace it too. Save those nice for summer days. Some of those as opposed to
No, I think I want it to be frozen out there.
Yeah.
At the wastewater treatment plant? Yeah.
Yeah. The thing that's great about though is that getting acquainted. I think people largely don't know that when you run for office, whether it's a mayor, an operational situation, administrator, whether it's the city council, there's a lot of getting around just to sort of learn the deeper aspects of things. Go and take a look at something. The wastewater goes somewhere, but what happens? Or what happens with when a water pipe is yanked out of the ground, and how do you read meters and all that type of stuff. That first year is really it's fun because you learn a lot.
Yeah,
you observe
that's
a lot.
Exactly it. It is
Powers of observation.
Yes, it's fantastic. And I did do a ride along with the police department, which was a fantastic, eye-opening opportunity. We have an incredible police department and fire department in this community, and our public safety officers and folks are amazing. Very eye-opening. And in fact, tonight I'm currently participating in the Citizens Law Academy, and that's an 8-week program, and that's actually going on tonight. So they knew I wasn't going to be able to make all of them, but that is an opportunity for citizens to go through an in-depth conversation and process for understanding what the Missoula Police Department is all about. And I have to say that that is a fantastic opportunity. I think it's very unique to Missoula. I think it's something that most citizens would really benefit from, to really understand just what goes into that level of service.
That's great. We're visiting with new mayor. I can say that for maybe 1 month. New Mayor Andrea Davis of the City of Missoula. We're here Wednesdays with the mayor. If you're watching on MCAT live and you have a question you'd like to call in, the number is 406-546-7692, 546-7692. Let's take a break just for a second and see if we have any questions in the audience. Anybody have anything they want to dive in on? If not, you can write something down too. You have a question? Okay, let's shift over here and go ahead and stand up. We'll, I think, follow on Ron's camera here. So.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Thanks. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Want to talk about climate change and the kind of overarching. We got lots of urgent, immediate kinds of issues that need to be addressed. But this is one of those urgent and long-term issues. And so we aren't going to solve it immediately, but we need to put mechanisms in place that start shifting our behaviors. So wondering what your thoughts are on the social cost of carbon. Are you familiar with that term?
I am, but I would love for you to elaborate for the audience if you would.
The social cost of carbon is an attempt, and there was a study that was done, released a little over a year ago, that documents the cost of fossil carbon going into the atmosphere. And that's from wildfires and the smoke and the health issues, extreme events, the hurricanes and, all of those things and all of the costs that come along with that. And so we're paying for those things every single day. And the idea is the way we use fossil carbon is not incorporated into our economy. And I'll use the example of this phenomenal library that we're in. It could have been built with mass timber, which would have stored carbon, and concrete and steel, and you may have heard this, that if concrete was a country, it would be the third largest emitter in the world, behind China and the U.S. And steel is almost right behind it. And when the idea of using wood instead of concrete and steel was brought up, the answer was, well, that costs too much because it's relatively new products and design, and that's changing. But the analysis was using the cost of concrete and steel without factoring in the costs that we're paying from more wildfires, more smoke, and all those sorts of things. So I'd like to see what's your thought about the city incorporating that social cost of carbon as a policy in the decision-making process as we invest in new bridges, new buildings, and that sort of thing.
Great. Good question there. Thank you very much. Yeah. Andrea, go ahead.
Well, thank you for the educational moment. And I will tell you that, and you probably know this, that the city, our current strategic plan has identified 3 lenses by which we make decisions. And it's not that, it's a lens, right? So we are thinking about climate, we're thinking about housing, and we're thinking about equity with every decision we're making. And some of those things may, they're not the equalizer amongst each of those 3 decisions, but we are considering that with everything that we make. And I have to say that this would be a longer and deeper conversation about the social cost of carbon, how we would incorporate that into our day-to-day decision making. One of the constraints that we have is money. And I think that's ultimately where this comes down. We know that as a society and as a world economy, we're spending trillions of dollars on the effects of major erratic weather issues that end up impacting communities. It's frustrating, I think, to all of us that and I would say the same thing comes down to other systemic issues that we have in our society that we don't do preventative investments in. There's somehow a lot of money to deal with the issue on the back end and clean that up. Local government is really at the head of all this, and yet our budgets are right here to deal with it. Right? They're a small, constrained budget to deal with some very challenging situations. So what can we do locally? I think the City of Missoula has done really an amazing job already with some of the community plans that we have in place because of our community partnerships. We've got the Clean Energy Plan by 2030, and we just passed a clean tariff power plan, or a green power plan, I should say, with the City of Bozeman, in partnership with the City of Bozeman and Missoula County. That's one way we're moving forward with our utility, which is Northwest Energy, and they deliver our utilities here. So we're trying to say, hey, how can you deliver us green energy? How can you deliver us clean energy? And this was an agreement that we made where we are going to basically help deliver the purchasing agreements. So they'll go out and build a plant that will be harnessing green energy.
I don't hear you offering any change in terms of what those directions have been recently. It sounds like you're pretty supportive of, like you say, the clean 2030 and those kinds of things.
I'm very dedicated. I was mentioning at the beginning that I went to school to figure out how to make business more sustainable from the inside out, because I was reflecting that when I was 12 and I was in 7th grade and in earth science, our teacher encouraged us to get 50 things you can do to save the planet, and it was our guide to Earth Day. And I found it recently, and the whole thing is highlighted, which is really funny because I didn't quite get the whole point of highlighting. You know what I mean?
It's all really just wanted to use it. Yeah.
Super important. The whole thing is super important.
Yeah, exactly.
But it has been something that I'm passionate about it, and we, as a community, have done some really great things. I was on the Mountain Line board for 12 years, and we are, moved that organization forward in terms of zero tailpipe emissions.
I was thinking about that in particular because during that 12-year period, I mean, if there was an organization in this town that did some amazing pivoting on those kinds of issues, it was Mountain Line. I mean, not just the electric buses, but all kinds of things changed over there, and that was a pretty dynamic transition there.
It sure was, and the reduction of carbon in our atmosphere transportation is a significant contributor. Planes, trains, and automobiles are, it's like a third of our overall carbon is because of transportation. So we basically live in a bowl. I mean, we live in a high mountain valley. We really need to be concerned about air quality. The work that we're going to be doing to decarbonize our future is about public health. It's not some crazy leftist move here. It's about a prosperous community, and it's about public health.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking about that this morning. We had all the dense fog, and you go back historically to the old Missoula, previous to the 80s especially, it just that inversion with all of the operations that were going on in the valley was just, and I thought about it today. I thought, all of that traffic on Reserve, all of that growing traffic, we're hitting a guardrail there. And it'll be interesting to see how we navigate that.
Absolutely, and I know we have other things to talk about, and we'll come back to the social cost of carbon maybe on a deeper conversation another time. But one of the things I wanted to circle back on is that the ability to connect with the program, it was funded through Bloomberg Philanthropies and the Harvard Kennedy School of Government program that I went to for 2.5 days. We interviewed for 3 fellows, so 3 master's fellows from Harvard, came to Missoula for 2 weeks, and we plugged them into our community planning, development, and innovation department, and that is where our climate team is housed. And what we did was, I was very interested in one of the things that I've been I've campaigned on and I'm very passionate about. And the city is doing a good job of this, but I really want to push us to do more as we can, is accessing more federal funds. There's a once in a generation opportunity at the to access funding through the Infrastructure and Jobs Act and through the Inflation Reduction Act. The whole point with both of those is to start turning our economy to a greener economy and green energy. And so we had those students work with our department heads, look at the capital improvement plans that we already have in place. These are capital improvements that City Council, that plan has already been approved by City Council. And we had them basically take a look at these two federal these programs and said, what that we're working on can we realistically go after in terms of significant grant funding. And it ranges everywhere from, there is a $50 million opportunity for more pedestrian and bicycle, pedestrian, and other safety features on Russell Street, and a $350,000 grant to replace the aerators at our wastewater treatment facility. But that's just one of the many things as city government that people probably don't think about. We have an aeration system, as they do at wastewater treatment, that basically helps gobble up all the bad stuff.
Yeah, vents it off.
Exactly.
Right.
And those things are about 15 years old. So we have to replace them at some point. It will be at the cost to taxpayers or our wastewater treatment, facility and district. And instead, we could possibly go after a grant to help to do that for us, get it done sooner, and there's some additional benefits that would bring to that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be a topic. Yeah, we'll have to come back around just on that type of stuff. Will be interesting.
Yeah.
To see what happens, because there is a lot of money at stake, and it seems to me like cities, organizations that are ready to, we use the expression shovel ready when all that money came out in 2008, right?
Yes.
You got to get in that kind of, you can't just have ideas. It's like we got to be ready to spend some of that money to get
Exactly.
approved. Yeah, exactly.
That's why Missoula does so well with these, because we do a lot of advanced planning and have things ready to go. And that's exactly what funders like that want to see.
Before we run out of time tonight, I want to hit a couple of things. Short-term goals. What are some of the things that are sort of on that? You mentioned the 100 days, whether it's 100, 120, 200, whatever. What's that short-term goal little list that you have there on the desk?
Oh, thank you for asking. The first is really the opportunity to work with City Council and a new council on ways that we as the administration can help support the council with information that they need at a glance and help improve communications. So there's also a new, there is a new president on council, and so she was excited about some of these opportunities as well. Just knowing, our city council members are, they hold other jobs. This is a part-time position, and yet we are dealing with really complex issues as a small urban city with very urban issues. And so we've been talking about ways that we can help support them, anywhere from an intraweb of common questions. The information's out there for the public already, but they have to go mine for it. They might have to look for it somewhere on the website, or they might have to look through past city council packets. So we've been talking about ways that we can help support them by just having an easy place to find some of that information. An easy way for constituents to fill out a form. Right now, constituents can email their city council members, but constituents don't necessarily have to identify who they are or what ward they're from, and that makes it hard for council members to know who should respond. Yeah. And so there's some ways that we can help improve communication, just even for constituents and constituent services. We're taking a look at the way our agenda is organized at City Council to make sure we're prioritizing the business that's necessary for council, because we have, as we're doing a lot of land use approvals and things, we've got staff and consultants that are at those meetings, and we want to make sure that we can be as effective and efficient with people's time as we can and still be very accessible by the public. So that's one thing we're working on, a whole kind of host of different things. The other is starting the budget process. As I was campaigning, whether it's true or not, the perception is that people want a more transparent budget process, and they want engagement. So we have some ideas for that, and we're sort of kind of flipping the way that it's been done on its head. Normally, the mayor presents an executive budget, and then the department heads present to City Council fitting within that executive budget, And they go through amendments, and then eventually the sausage is made and the budget gets approved.
Problem with that, let me interject because I've seen it.
Yeah.
The problem is with that is that, A, maybe not in Missoula, but you'll see departments sort of pitted against one another, A, but B, also for the council and the public, it can be very difficult to sort of follow which block are we in now? What is this here? And not see that overall picture of why are these fees jumping here? Why is this changing here? Why are these services changing? So I'm thinking you're trying to get it where it's a little more fluid that way, so or accessible, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because when I was talking about this with our senior leadership team, which are the department heads, we would basically ask the departments to present on their budget and its needs. You know, it's going to be needs, wants, desires, but also developing. Each department is being asked to develop a program inventory. So for every major program inside of a department, to be able to simmer down to one page, what is the program inventory? So we can take a look at what is essential to our city. What are things that our community values or doesn't value, and how does that then fit into the budget? That will give the council an opportunity. They'll be asking questions, offering input, and the public, because that's all a public process. I'll then have an opportunity to then obviously work with department heads at that point and put together all of that feedback and really develop the mayor's budget from there.
I like that.
We'll see how it goes. I'm excited.
Because that's the thing is you know, having covered city for a long time, it's difficult to sort of walk in and you know, if you're public and you have a concern about, you know, this or that, police, fire protection, whatever it is, services, streets, and then know, well, what is this program over here doing in relation to something else? So it sounds like you could be able to do that kind of comparison, to be able to look and say, well, we need to prioritize here because we're doing this, but this isn't coming up for 3 years. You know, I like that.
You used
Information's good.
Information is good. Information is good. And one of the things that it's, you know, directly related, of course, to our budget is the property tax structure in Montana. And, you know, it's something that is an immediate, first 100 days priority that will be years in the making. So we will be working on working with our other large 7 cities. We're one of 7, so the other 6 large cities in Montana, other counties, ways in which we can work with the legislature in 2025 on some solutions for relief of property taxes. The challenge with that, I mean, we are in a very difficult property tax structure for local government, and so we really need to take a look at what are some options that make sense for us as a state at this point. I'm not putting any proposals forward, but right at this moment, but it is something that we are very eager to try to help find some solutions for.
And I imagine still continuing that work with Missoula County as well, because that's been a close association as this issue has been navigated.
Yeah. We have an excellent relationship with Missoula County. It's just fantastic to be able to work together on some really big issues. One of the other first 100-day priorities is helping our community have a conversation around the impacts of urban camping. And it's something that has been, it's been hard for a lot of people in Missoula because we've seen some really significant changes, and we see a lot of people suffering. We see things happening in our parks or along right-of-ways. An example of the city and the county coming together is on the Johnson Street Emergency Shelter. And we both utilized the last American Recovery Plan funds we had to fund that as a 24-hour emergency shelter. So in this budget cycle, we're going to have a conversation about how is it that we're going to be able to keep that open. So there's that in and of itself. In the meantime, there's then also still the challenge that we have as a community around folks that are still living unhoused and unsheltered. And those two terms, often people are like, what's the difference? Unhoused often means that people are in an RV or in a tent, but unsheltered means people are literally sleeping on a sidewalk. They actually don't have the means to even have any form of shelter at all. And those folks that are really dealing with some very significant challenges. a lot of mental and behavioral health issues and substance use challenges, and or both, and or none. I mean, it's a mix of a lot of different things. And we, as a community, have a wide range of opinion about how we should be handling this. And we are really, quite honestly, within a pretty narrow box as a city. We are, we obviously have a humanitarian desire to make sure that we are helping people. And we
Nothing going on.
Okay, try it now.
Test, test, test. There we go.
that worked.
Sorry for that interruption, folks. Those of you watching on MCAT said, "What happened to you?" Well, it's a software glitch. We always have, that's the first time that one's happened though. So, anyway, we were talking about the homeless and sheltered and those kinds of things. And I guess just to kind of summarize that, so really trying to identify paths forward, whether it's something like Johnson Street Shelter or just some of the broader issues, trying to hone down the approach, right? And how do you balance these things?
Yeah, absolutely. And the city has, I mean, again, this is one of these very complicated issues that the city is working alongside community partners on. We really have the role of a convener and really a planner in that sense. That's really an appropriate role in a lot of ways for a municipality versus like a direct service provider. And we we have a lot of folks that I'm eager to bring some folks to the table for a conversation on specifically on the urban camping conversation. There was an ordinance proposed that may or may not do what folks think it will, and so we just need to make sure that we do have tools available to us that can help make sure that our community is safe for everybody.
And I know that like all the cities, especially in the West, everybody's watching for this Supreme Court decision, which should happen somewhat soon. I think summer is what I'm hearing.
Me too.
That it might be argued, but it could be longer for a decision. So, so hopefully something happens on that in 2024.
I know we have another question, but one thing I just want to say, and of course this is me wearing my housing hat, but between the Johnson Street shelter and Blue Heron Place that opened, which I just helped complete before I left homeward, and that's 30 homes that are 30 permanent supportive homes, and that's where people can come and live as they are. There's small apartments, there's rental assistance, so people can afford rent there, and there's wraparound support services. And these are some of the folks that, quite frankly, are some of the most challenged in terms of vulnerability. That means that they probably were some of the ones that had most police and fire, emergency response engagement, emergency room engagement, courts. And since those 30 homes have been filled up, all of that has decreased significantly. So we are seeing real efficacy of these efforts in our community, and it takes resources. And but that's really kind of addressing some of the systemic issues that really lead to what we see as unsheltered and unhoused challenges.
Outstanding. Well, we'll keep posted on that. Question over here or comment?
Oh, sure thing. So my name is Bradley Layton. I'm a licensed professional engineer in the state of Montana, and I know there's a lot of times comments at city council about how long it takes to get permits, but I was pleasantly surprised. I submitted one yesterday, and it was approved. I looked at my inbox like, wow, approved today, overnight. So whatever. I don't know if the feedback from Monday. So my problem is getting those aspiring to be housed. So one happy customer there. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
We love good reports. That works out well.
Yeah, make sure that's on. I hope that's recorded.
Yes, exactly. That's outstanding. I mean, that's the kind of thing that you want to hear, is that we're making progress on things.
Absolutely, exactly.
Let's touch on one thing, and then we'll wrap up long term. So as you go out and look, give me the top 2 or 3, maybe a couple of things that are out there on that horizon, that if we were having this conversation halfway through your term, that you're saying we made some progress here.
Yeah, great. We will have adopted a unified development code. And that will take the better part of the next 12 months to complete that project. But that unified development code will have had really significant input and community engagement, which has been part of the process all along. So that will be complete, which means that it's actually a usable set of the code to then move forward, help with the process constraints that we see. So that will be achieved. That we will have had a community conversation, and that we will have additional support for our fire department. That's an area that we're going to come back to as far as City Council deciding to put that on the ballot. And then I would say additionally that we have sold some of the parcels of land that will help fund the Affordable Housing Trust Fund, so we can continue to do some more deals. One thing that will start construction is the Scott Street Partners project. That's the first project the City of Missoula has undertaken with substantial city engagement or involvement, where we're not just land banking and then selling it or providing infrastructure to private developers, but that's where we have gone and worked with the Northside neighborhood and done a super fun cleanup. I mean, that parcel, and many living in Missoula for so many years knows the White Pine Sash property was a dead zone for years and years, but a major piece of property and development opportunity in a residential neighborhood. So we have gone through the cleanup of that site and have the ability now to bring infrastructure in, and working with community partners to build a community land trust there. So 90 homes that are part of a community land trust, which means the land is owned in trust, and only the homes then are purchased by the home buyers. Half of those will be income qualified for people that are earning moderate wages in our community, and then half of those will be market. And then there will also be market rate apartments built on that site and a new park. If that's under construction and those units are starting to sell at the end of my 2-year term, that would be a major situation.
Big smile there.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, one thing I want to mention too, side note on that, when you talk about parcels, it brought to mind Missoula County Public Schools just prior to COVID was also going through a similar process where they were taking a look at unused properties.
Yeah.
I think that, I'm trying to remember, I don't think there was any real resolution of that because then the pandemic hit. So that might be something to circle back with MCPS and sort of find out what their efforts are if they're thinking of doing something like that, because they also are. It's amazing the amount of property that MCPS actually owns in and around this town from all the old schools and different purchases over the years. So
You're
just
exactly
a side note.
right.
Side tip.
Well, I meet with Micah Hill, who's our new superintendent of schools, at the end of February, and I'm really excited to talk about partnership opportunities.
That would be a good one.
Yeah. All
right. Well, Andrea, we appreciate your time very much. Thank you. And thanks to everybody for being here. A little round of applause for her here. I think it was pretty good for an inaugural outing. And thanks for your comments and everything. Thanks to everybody on MCAT for watching. Thanks to Scott and Ron and the whole team from MCAT. Sorry, lost my acronym there for a minute. Thank you guys for helping us out here tonight and for being this. And thanks for joining us for Wednesdays with the Mayor.